At Evolution, we have a principal thesis that we use when we invest. And that principal thesis is that technology decomposes monolithic industries. This is very important for us as investors because it separates us from other investors in our class who are maybe looking for brand new industries. We're looking to decompose monolithic industries. And AI is a perfect decomposition tool.
Welcome back to the Super Entrepreneurs Podcast. I'm your host, Shahid Darani. The show where we dive into the minds of high-performing entrepreneurs, innovators, and world-class leaders. If you're someone who's always looking to grow, push your limits, think and do bigger, you're in the right place. Today, we have Alex Chompff. Alex is the co-founder and executive director of Evolution Ventures and lead general partner of Minerva Fund. He's an active early stage venture capital firm investing in women and traditionally underrepresented founders. Welcome to our show, Alex.
Thank you, Shahid. It's an honor to be here, and I really appreciate the opportunity. And I want to thank your audience for giving us a moment to share.
Can you elaborate on what it means as an underrepresented founder, just to clarify?
Sure. Speaking now pretty closely about the Minerva Fund, because the Minerva Fund focuses in this area. The Minerva Fund is very interested in finding an equitable distribution of venture capital based on the very simple premise that Providence distributes brilliance equally among its people. And so there tends to be people who are less represented in terms of professional investment. And Minerva Fund is looking for opportunities to find those individuals and surface them, and not only help to reinforce this idea of brilliance distributed equally, but also hopefully uncover some fantastic investment opportunities along the way that might have been overlooked.
Yeah, true. So it's a niche that you'd be able to serve better.
Yeah. We think it's very important to be of service. At Evolution,
of course.
Minerva Fund, we find this to be a very important driving idea in all of our work.
Yeah, I'm glad you're on this show then. It's great. I noticed that you were in military service and Silicon Valley during the internet boom, and now leading ventures like the Evolution Accelerator. So how do you believe that the way you manage your business or grow your business has been affected with that type of mix of experience?
Oh, we are all products of the earth in which we're raised. And I had the very good fortune to be raised in a family that not only had a strong patriotic military tradition, but also was filled with entrepreneurs and inventors. And so I got an opportunity from a very young age to be exposed to some pretty formative ideas. And then, luckily enough, because my father, who was a Marine before me and was working for the phone company when I was a child, we moved to the California Bay Area, the San Francisco Bay Area. And so the San Francisco Bay Area is famous, of course, for technological innovation and has been for many years. It's also a place where people are very open to new ideas and new ways of thinking and new ways of being. So I was exposed from a very young age to a wide array of things that were not only very traditionally American and very much of the heartland, like patriotism and military service and finding a way to be of use to your country, but also of the left coast, the West Coast, as they say, and very much open to new ways of doing things and new ways of seeing things and a willingness to disrupt the status quo in order to bring about a new way of doing things. So it's very fortunate to have been raised in that terra firma. Then from there, I had a set of really good experiences, only some of which I can take responsibility for. Kind of, if your listeners are used to the movie Forrest Gump, if they've seen the movie Forrest Gump, Forrest is in lots of famous movies, but they're not his movie, if you understand. Like he goes to lots of places and is in lots of things, but he's always like the guy in the background or the guy in the sideline. That's pretty much where I've been for much of my life. It's fortunate to be at some exciting places and some exciting times, and
That's
maybe
awesome.
even to have done a little bit to help push the sled. But
Yeah.
it's not my movie. I'm just there, and that was
Yeah. You're
opportunity.
just a part of it.
Yes,
So tell me, do you practice your voice in the mirror?
I'll tell you.
Did you
I'll,
practice for, because it's so amazing, right? So I just have to ask.
sure. As I mentioned before the call started, and the nice way
Yeah.
to say, you got a face made for radio,
No,
and
no, I didn't mean that though,
no,
but
no,
okay.
no.
Yeah.
And my wife says that I talk very slowly and I'm very
Yeah.
hard to listen to. All I know is that inside of my own head, I'm running around shouting all the time. There's a ton of things going on, and this is just how I present.
Okay. All right. All right. It's good.
Yeah.
Welcome.
The best I've got for you. I'm in my 50s and I've pretty much sounded like this my whole life, I think.
Awesome. 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 No, it's great. So you have a podcast?
I have experimented with podcasting, but I don't have the consistency to get to be any good at it. And besides which, I'm a much better guest than host, honestly.
That's fine. AI is a topic that everyone's speaking about, especially in your profession. What do you feel or what do you believe AI is going to transition into in the future for new startups?
Yeah. Yeah. AI is super interesting. Super interesting. I should say that I've been banging around on a keyboard for money since 1990. And along the way, I've picked up a few business and technical skills, and I'm absolutely fascinated by AI. Matter of fact, I got my Open AI developer key in
Oh,
May
okay.
of 2023. And so whenever open, it was like November or something of 2022 when they announced, I stayed up all night playing with that thing, man. All night I stayed up playing with that thing. It was a miracle. And I signed
Yeah.
up for the professional thing as soon as I could get it. And I got my developer key in May of 2023. And I launched a product by June of 2023. It's called the Masterverse, masterverse.ai. And it's a
Okay.
community dedicated to exploring how AI works by understanding how different engines think about different things. And it's very interesting. It's very super interesting. So I'm super interested in it. I played around with it with my own product stack for about 6 months before I started investing in it actively. And that really helped a lot because it helped me to identify where the real problems were, like problems like research
Mm.
did, like a recall augmented generation RAG. This was a problem that I was trying to solve for my users back in June or July of 2023. So I knew it was a real problem. That's a company that we've invested in. I started feeding AIs information and feeding them, talking to each other, and pretty quickly realized you get to nonsense pretty fast. So I could understand that synthetic data was going to be a problem. You can't create synthetic learning materials, or at least not wholly synthetic.
No.
So I've
Mhm.
invested in another company that is all about building training materials. It's called, geez, it's escaping me in the moment. I'll think of it in a minute. Anyway, so I think there are lots of opportunities. Let me say this. There are lots of opportunities to invest today. If you want to be an investor, if you want to get into AI, if you want to be involved, try to concentrate on problems that matter. Try to concentrate on things that matter. Try to understand where the real problems are with the technology and go there to see what you can do, because that's where your opportunities are going to be. Where you solve problems is where you find returns.
And that's what entrepreneurs do. But do you
Yeah.
have some kind of suggestions in your experience for entrepreneurs to be looking into any specific industries or just a very blanket view of anything that is technical right now and how can you make it better?
Yeah. At Evolution, we have a principal thesis that we use when we invest. And that
Mhm.
principal thesis is that technology decomposes monolithic industries. Okay? Technology decomposes monolithic industries. This is very important for us as investors because it separates us from other investors in our class who are maybe looking for brand new industries We're looking to decompose monolithic industries. And AI is a perfect decomposition tool. AI is...
So can you, before explaining that, can you just elaborate that statement? Can you explain what that means exactly?
Sure.
Yeah.
So you got to get in the Wayback Machine a little bit, but it'll make sense, right?
Yeah.
Once upon a time, if you wanted to be in the logistics business, you needed to have trucks, radios, software, manifests, drivers.
Yeah.
Nowadays, Amazon, Uber, and everything in between have decomposed logistics to the point where if you want to be part of the logistics industry, all you need are some wheels and a few minutes of time and an app like you get to be part of the logistics industry. That's decomposition of a monolithic industry. Another decomposition of a monolithic industry would be, again, 20, 30 years ago. If you wanted to be in the public eye, if you wanted to influence, if you wanted to be heard by large groups of people, you needed to have some access to media, right? You needed to have cameras. You needed to have directors. You needed to have distribution methods. You needed to have all kinds of things if you wanted to get your message out into the world, because media was a monolithic industry. And so as Amazon has done to logistics, and as YouTube has done to entertainment or media or influencing, you can think of companies like PayPal or Stripe or Quicken that are decomposing the banking industry and have been decomposing it for some time. Almost any fintech you look at is decomposing the banking industry, which is another monolithic industry. Okay. So there are a number of other monolithic industries that are under decompositional assault from AI. The most
Give some examples.
Oh, sure. The most straightforward is the legal industry. Pretty much anybody who's played with AI and in a business capacity has used it to try to draft some kind of legal document or some kind of agreement or some kind of memorandum of understanding or some kind of LOI or things that you would have traditionally turned to an attorney for. Right? And there's an old saying, which is never hand an attorney a blank piece of paper. Right? So now you don't ever have to hand your attorney a blank piece of paper. And it's not going to be long before you don't really need to consult an attorney for most things. Right? Once upon a time, for example, when I was growing up, every shopping center that you went to had travel agents in it. Travel agents. Some shopping centers had 2 travel agents. There was enough. And if you wanted to travel in those days, it was a lot like consulting an attorney is today. You would go, you would sit at a desk.
Yeah, travel agent.
You would tell the nice lady, because it was almost always a lady, behind the desk where it was you wanted to go. I want to go to Mexico for a couple of weeks. And she would bang away on a Sabre computer. We didn't know it was Sabre, okay? But that was what it was, a Sabre terminal, because she'd gone to college to learn how to use a Sabre terminal. And she would present you with 3 options, and you would pick the option that worked best for you. And then she would arrange it all and give you a packet of papers. And that's how you traveled.
Yeah.
Now, when was the last time you went to a travel agent?
5, 6 years ago, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. How many times have you traveled since then?
2, 3.
At least, right? Yeah, not even counting.
But everything is online now, right? It's just someone who would want to go to a travel agent.
So I think attorneys are situated about the same space as travel agents were. 25, 30 years ago.
Interesting.
Travel agent, very common, very good line of work, very high quality of life. I think attorneys are situated right where travel agents were situated in 1995. Feeling pretty good about things.
So it could be that the governments in each region could implement rules using artificial intelligence for legal documents.
Governments can do it, but entrepreneurs can do it. You want to know a fun game in the VC community right now? Everybody's playing it in the back of their head. We're all waiting for the single person $1 billion company.
Yes.
We haven't seen it yet, but it will be here. It will be here. I'll bet it's here before 2030. There will be a company that's run principally by agentic AI, with somebody in the middle of it who's thought their way through it and has found a market need and is solving that need. Wait for it. It's coming.
Wow.
It's coming.
That's exciting, man.
When I started in the When I started in VC, I started as a technical provider. I was the director of technology to the world's largest venture capital firm at the height of the dot-com boom. And interestingly enough, they had the world's first incubation space, and I don't think they were quite sure what to do with it, so they gave it to me. And I got this amazing experience all the way through the dot-com boom. But the principal source of, or the principal use of funds in those days, at least in the beginning for early stage companies, was to purchase computing infrastructure so that you would have file, print, email, and so forth, because those things were very difficult to come by in 1999. Now, the company that I was in service to was actually the company that invested in Google. And I was in that building when they got their check. And a few years later, nobody needed to buy $250,000 worth of server hardware to start a company. You just went to Gmail and signed up. And then we got into a whole new kind of use for VC funds, a whole new need. It was no longer for computing infrastructure. Now it was for people. And that's what's been happening for the last 20 years or so. What happens when you don't need that money for people? When that's not your principal expense? When you don't have to go out and hire $500,000 worth of development resources for 6 months to try
to be in technology, right? That investment instead.
What will happen is that entrepreneurs in particular will be able to bring their ideas to fruition much more efficiently, capital efficiently, and time efficiently. Just as we're much more efficient today than we were in the early 2000s, and we're much more efficient then than we were in the 1990s. It is increasing all the time. That's what technology is doing. AI is very much an efficiency increaser, an efficiency enhancer. And like I said, I think the legal industry is a very good example, but where I think AI really excels, and here we're talking principally about language learning models, but almost any kind of learning algorithm will excel at the intersection of complexity. And for a pretty fair chunk of our professional class in the Western world, you spend a fair amount of your life, your education, your business, trying to make sense of complexity. That's how you earn your money, right? Whether you're a scientist trying to make sense of data, whether you're an attorney trying to make sense of contracts, right? Whether you're a nonprofit trying to understand how to do tax filing, right? There's most of the money that gets spent at the higher level at the higher order, at the higher abstraction level is around complexity. And AI is extremely good at not getting confused by complexity. So if you're making your
makes
money,
sense.
If you're looking at a business where people's principal value offering is that they've studied for years to be able to interpret a complex topic, then you're probably vulnerable to these learning algorithms.
Yeah. So do you have a department that is looking at developing any tools other than the one you did back in 23?
We're always playing. And
so is there any kind of secret you could share what you're working on right now?
But most of the time, it's much more prudent for me to invest in people who are solving problems that I'm aware of. Because I could solve one problem or two problems, or I can invest in 20 companies that are solving 5, 6, 7 problems.
It's great. Yeah, no, definitely, man. It was great, Alex, talking to you today about all of this fantastic stuff that you're doing and the work that you're doing. If there's any last suggestion that you can give or tip that you can share with the audience, if they have some kind of an idea boiling within them that they want to utilize or bring forth in the market, but just don't have any resources, they're just watching YouTube videos or listening to podcasts and it's burning them up and they want to do something with it. What are the first few steps they should take to start creating some momentum towards it?
The first thing that I would do is make a few notes and talk about it with people. Share your idea. One of the things that
market research.
Okay, but let's just start with sharing the idea. Just
that's what I'm. Oh,
socializing the idea, because a lot of
okay.
early entrepreneurs have a fear that their idea might be stolen from them.
Yeah.
And that's something I really want to give you freedom from. Because
Yeah.
if you're the kind of person who thinks of solutions to problems, this is not the only solution you're going to think of.
Yeah.
Now,
No.
I will give one piece of advice, if I may, to the entrepreneurs in the crowd who might be looking for funding. And it's something that I've said before, and if your audience has heard it before, I apologize, but I think it's worth saying. And that is that when you're looking for funding for your project, it's really easy to feel like you're panning for gold. And panning for gold is a cold, miserable, unrewarding experience. Anybody who's ever seen pictures of miners standing up to their waists in freezing cold water looking for that tiny little nugget can imagine how much that must have sucked. And that's what it feels like to be an entrepreneur looking for funding. And I want to give you something that's really important. I want you to understand as an entrepreneur that you're actually the gold that all the rest of us are looking for. The whole funding ecosystem, everything around startups is actually looking for you. You're the gold that we're all hunting. So know that and get started, because there's people who are hunting for you, who want to raise you up and help you be successful.
And Alex is one of them.
We certainly try.
Yeah, no, it was great, my friend. Great getting to know you and calmly listening to you speak. It was very impressive, very soothing. So I'm grateful to have this opportunity, and the knowledge that you're sharing is very deep. And definitely, I'm very excited to see what's coming about. I'm sure you're working on something big and you just don't want to share right now, maybe. But if you do, you can always come back on the show when you do launch it, and we'll love to have you here and speak about it more openly.
Yes, it's an honor to be here. And for your audience, if they're interested in understanding AI and being part of an AI community, try masterverse.ai. If you're interested in learning about fundraising, try evolutionaccelerator.co. Okay? And for your community, we're here to serve.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that offer. And thank you so much for your time, and keep in touch.
Thank you, Shahid. It's an honor to be here. Appreciate it.